long ago to talk about completing annual reports for this year. One of the things that we heard loud and clear from many of you in this room and our partners in education is that the schedule that we currently use for our annual reports is not kind of the best method for us to understand the data and for all of you to think about your data that you're collecting at your sites. And so we've made some changes based on that. So the team is here to really walk you through that. I want to spend just a couple of minutes on the agenda, again, for those who are joining us via webinar. We'll go through the reporting guidelines and tips to submitting a quality report, which will be headed up by the managers and directors on the team here. A refresh demo of online reporting, which Tom Lands will head up for us. And then we will take some time at the end to do some breakout sessions for your specific goal areas so that we can make sure you have all of your questions answered today, or at least you know who to contact if you have questions as you walk through your answers. So a quick walkthrough of the agenda today. We are going to go through the reporting guidelines and tips to submitting a quality report, which the managers and directors will walk us through. We're going to go through a quick refresh demo of the online reporting system. You all may remember that we launched a new system in 2012, so Tom Lands will walk us through that. And then we will do some impact area breakout sessions where we can ask more specific questions and answers around the work that you do in your specific goal area that you'll be reporting on. If you're here representing more than one goal area, staff will stick around and make sure that you get all of your questions answered. So one thing I would like to do so that you all know who is in the room, if we could go around and introduce the United Way staff so that you know kind of who to check in with as we go through this. And Naomi, let's start with you.
Early Learning Access and Reading by Third Grade. Thank you for coming.
Hi, Rachel Oberkhauser with Out of School Time.
Perfect. And then we have other United Way staff in the room as well, but I just want to recognize that Naomi and Rachel have both put in a lot of work to make this happen on this timeline and to hopefully listen in a really good way to our grantees to make sure that we have everything covered. So know that this is a learning process for us as well, so feedback on the process will be really, really helpful. So why annual reports and why now? So I talked a little bit about just what we're hearing from our grantees in general in the education space with the timeline not being as conducive to all of you collecting data and having it on hand and all of us thinking about data here at United Way. One thing that I like to say as much as possible to our grantees is that we really do read the annual reports that came in. The staff reviewed 333 annual reports towards the end of April and May to really understand the progress that we're making as a portfolio. And so it's really a good snapshot into the work that you're doing and what we can learn here at United Way to improve our work as well. So it captures really important data and information. Hopefully it's something that all of you are using as a continuous improvement tool as well. It really allows us to understand the progress that we're making towards our big goals here at United Way. So if you're in reading by third grade, really understanding if kids are reading at grade level, what some of the barriers might be to kids who are not reading at grade level, and really meeting those goals would be an example. So this really is a tool for us to understand the work that all of you are doing with United Way funding. We also know that it informs our emerging themes and best practices. So one of the things that we're really thinking about here at United Way is our 3-year grant-making process and understanding that we need to learn as we go through each year to make improvements in that process. So you all are really the window to helping us understand what you're seeing with each of the goal areas to make those improvements. So it is something we take very seriously and that we read thoroughly and that our program managers will be in touch with you on as questions come out of that. So it's not meant to be a punitive mechanism by any stretch of the imagination. It's really meant to be a continuous improvement mechanism. And then as we said, we really heard from many of you in this room that you wanted to work on a different schedule with us. So we understand that this is a really quick turnaround, as I mentioned from the previous reporting process and timeline. So bear with us as we move through this. And as I mentioned, it is a learning opportunity for us as well. So myself and Naomi and Rachel and others here will be looking at this closely to inform some of our other grantee reporting mechanisms as well. And then finally, I just want to walk you quickly through the timeline. So reports are available online today. You have until August 30th to complete those reports and submit by 4 p.m. We'll be reviewing the reports in September of 2013, and managers will be in touch with you if they have questions as they're reviewing those and to also give feedback on specific elements. And then in October 2013, that's when annual reports will be revised and finalized. So that's the schedule. One thing that we also heard from the grantees is around the actual deadline for this, and so we did try to allow for as much time as possible, knowing that you all just finished a round of annual reports and we're asking you to jump right back into it with us. So we're trying to be thoughtful about that, and thank you to those of you who really worked with Rachel and Naomi to provide that feedback as well. And then your United Way team. Naomi and Rachel already introduced themselves, but I also want to give a shout out to Katie Jerick in the back of the room. Katie, if you can give a wave, who is our Director of Operations and make sure that a lot of this happens. Melanie Dennis also in the back. Melanie has done a huge, heavy amount of work here with Naomi and Rachel to think about this and get this set up on the schedule, so really appreciate that, Melanie. And then our IT group as well, if you could give a quick wave. You'll hear from Tom here soon, but Nick, man on the spot there, making things happen with technology, so thank you, Nick. And then Kevin Anderson, who heads up that team, if you could give a quick wave, Kevin, in the back. And then I also just want to say hi to Ben Knoll, our COO, who has joined us for this session as well, who oversees all of community impact as well as information services. So with that, I will turn it over to Naomi. Oh, I think this is me too, the deadline, sorry. What you'll be submitting, annual report data on the July 2012, June 2013 school year. So again, it's meant to be more in action with the current year that you just wrapped up so that you're not reporting a year and a half later. And then again, due on August 30th by 4 p.m.
Everyone. Rachel and I are going to walk you through the slightly revised annual reports that we have configured this year. We heard a lot from what you reported back to us at the end of April about the reporting process last time. Some of the comments that you had were technical in nature, and so Tom is going to talk about how we've revised the technical aspects of the report to the best of our abilities. And then we also noticed that there was a lot of variability in the responses to a lot of the questions, both in terms of the data for the indicators as well as the narrative responses. And like Megan was saying, we use the reports to capture themes of what's going on and help direct us in what we need to be doing to support you all in your work. And so we really wanted to see if we could see greater consistency in the type of responses that we were getting. And so Rachel and I are going to be walking you through the general narrative section and the indicators of the report to help guide you in what we might be looking for this time around. And then, like Megan said, we're going to be splitting up by program area to give you more specific guidance on the indicators. So there should be a second document with you behind the PowerPoint presentation, and it looks like this. Okay. So I'm going to be walking you through this guideline, and this is really kind of a cheat sheet for you on what you can be looking to do during the reporting for the annual report. And so this really walks you through question by question what we're kind of looking for and gives you some ideas and some sample text on what some good quality responses have been in the past. Just quickly, I'm going to walk you through the keys so you have an idea of what we're looking at. And again, we're going to ask you to report back to us in September about the use of this document. So I really encourage you to give us feedback. But just generally, this here, this kind of bubble, really is indicating the sections that we're trying to point out where we're going to give you guidance. And then the comments that relate to the area that we're trying to highlight or bring your attention to are going to look like these kinds of comment boxes. And we're going to walk you through that in a second. The other thing I just mentioned before is that we are giving you sample responses so that you can get an idea of quality responses that we've seen in the past. I know a number of you have asked for that in the past. I think one of our other program managers had also provided a completed report from another grantee to others so that they could get an idea of what we're looking for. So we're going to walk you through question by question. We will ask you to hold on to questions till the end so that we can have it organized by Mary Beth. But this is some pretty basic information. We haven't seen any problems in the past providing the name of your report, but where we did see a difficulty was in the selection of the name of your grant program. As you'll recall, when you're in the actual technology, you get a pop-down area, right, with a bunch of the program names for everybody in our portfolio. what happened was that we noticed a lot of people were pushing the arrow key down, which would then actually select a different program name instead of just scrolling you down through the report. And then on our end, the data would then get rolled up into that other program name. So what we're encouraging you to do for this section is to make sure once you've selected your correct program name, and we do encourage you to review that at the end before you hit submit, is then to use the scroll bar on the right. And I'm going to use the scroll bar myself. If you turn to the next page, one of the new things that we did add to the report, and we hope that it's not going to be viewed as extra work, but we're asking you to provide a brief paragraph description about what your program does. This is elevator speech, just a quick sentence or two about what the program does, what are some of the key activities. This helps us remind us what we're looking at, what kind of report we're reading about, because for many of us we're reading some 50 or plus reports in a given period, and this is just a good reminder. And so we encourage you to use whatever you have on hand. The second question is actually a narrative question that came from the narrative section from the past. We've actually moved it up, and this question is asking you about any program changes that you've made in the past year. So our thought was that it's good for us to know straight up front if there have been any key programmatic changes so that we're reading the rest of the report in that context. So this is not a new question, we've just replaced the order. So program-specific indicators. I'm happy to tell you that we have not added any indicators, new indicators, and we have not changed the wording on any of the indicators. We are going to be taking some time, like I said at the end, to talk about the specific ones for your program areas, but I will just give you a few quick tips, and we'll remind you of these when we're in our brief breakout session. Is that one, we're asking again, and this is similar to the last round of reporting, for you to report the actual number of individuals who are meeting any particular indicator. So in the past, if you'll recall, we were asking you to report on percentages achieving the indicator. Again, this year, consistent with last time, we're asking you to report on actual numbers. We'd also like to encourage you to review your latest funded agency agreement. We should have posted those on the link on your sub-site for the program. We encourage you to look at those to see, am I in alignment with what we had proposed. Also, there was some confusion around the Access Program area, and we'll be talking about that in that breakout session, where some people were reporting on indicators that they had not proposed during their RFP segment. So where there are indicators that are optional or were optional during the RFP process, we encourage you to look back at your funded agreement, agency agreement, to remind yourselves what areas you need to be reporting back on. And lastly, and this is going back to the previous rounds of reporting, we are asking you again to look at what you had proposed in terms of the number of individuals meeting the indicators and what you're actually reporting on, and let us know and understand why there may be variance, whether it's positive or negative. This really helps us understand what's going on in your program. And in the last round, I know that we had a one catch-all variance question because we had at the time some technical difficulties. This year, or this time around, we were able to get that variance question for each individual indicator. So again, where there's variance, we encourage you to provide us some information about why there is a change. We will be coming back to that. Okay, so pretend like we've gone through each individual indicator for your program area. Now we're going to be coming to the narrative section. Again, all these questions are the same as in the past. The only difference is that we've reordered them. And the reason for the reordering them, we think, is that there will be better flow and hopefully a little less repetition. How many of you have already done annual reporting for United Way? Raise your hand. Okay, a lot. Would any of you agree with the statement that there is some confusion, or it seems like the questions are asking for the same thing? Show of hands? Yeah? Okay, good. Well, again, didn't change the wording, but we do think that in explaining what we're looking for in these questions, hopefully we'll be able to parse out the different elements that we're looking for in these questions. And we'd love to hear your feedback during the breakout sections or about what you're thinking, or if you have any questions. Also, I will encourage you to look at the sample text that we have, because there is somewhat of a narrative or story that's going on across 3 questions, because they do relate. So for example, the first question, describe any emerging trends, positive or negative, that the program encountered during the 2012 to 2013 program year. So here we're asking you to describe external forces that the program may have experienced that may have influenced the indicator outcomes that you had reported on. This helps us understand the context in which your program has been operating, as well as identify themes that we may see across programs. So as you'll see in the text, it talks about mental health issues for children and parents. This is actually a true case. We saw in early learning access in the past few years a lot of programs talking about mental health as an issue area for their programs, and this is external to what they're doing. Well, in response to that, we at United Way found some resources and put them towards some specific mental health training that we then provided to our access grantees. And so again, we're really trying to understand how we can help you in terms of programs, as well as understand what we need to do as a sector to address these external forces. The second question in this order is now describe any innovative, best, or new practices the program developed and or implemented while providing services to clients. This time around, we're kind of emphasizing new because we realize that the wording of this innovative, best, and new practices are really kind of three different things, or can be three different things. You do have some flexibility in terms of what you can respond, but I think what we're looking for is new. And what we're also thinking is that it would be good to understand what are you doing new or differently as it relates to the external forces you saw above. So for example, if your program saw that there were a number of mental health issues that you were seeing across your program area, what is your program doing in terms of continuous improvement to meet the families where they are or provide different kind of services to see improved outcomes over time? So this is really kind of connected to the first question, but asking a different, we're asking for different information. You know what, I might pause here actually, Mary Beth, if we want to take questions, because I see some stone eyebrows. Does anyone have any questions so far on these 50 questions? No, okay. I'm misreading facial cues, I apologize. And then if you turn to page 4, the third question is provide a brief description about key lessons learned, how the program demonstrated continuous improvement in response. So the question here is really asking, you've identified a problem, you've now changed up your program, what are you learning from this new change that you've made? And so again, when you read through the example, it's talking about different elements they've put in place in their program in this current year in response to other issues or continuous improvements that they're trying to make, and what have they learned from that experience. So it is slightly different from the first because it's internal. It's relating to learnings that they've had based on their programming as opposed to learnings they're having based on external forces. So this again would be internal learnings versus learnings from external factors. So Rachel Oberkhauser is going to pick up from here and talk about the next few narrative questions, as well as the demographic section and the budget.
Great, thanks, Naomi. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay, good. So I'm going to pick up where Naomi left off and talk about the key collaborations component. So the question is, describe how collaborations with other organizations enhance expertise and or resources that maximize services to clients. So what we're really looking for, we've seen a number of programs who've simply listed out every single person that they've collaborated with in some fashion. And so on one hand, that's really interesting for us to see, but we're really looking for those strong partners that have been long-term and that have, you've both benefited from that partnership together. And so we're looking to have you focus on maybe one or two key collaborations that you've done and really talk about how that's benefited your program and how that's benefited the people that you're serving. Does that make sense? Can I get some head nods or head? slide, please? Okay. And there's a great example here from LDA on what that looks like. So the next one is the success story. And we've seen a lot of great success stories and some ones that we wanted to hear more. And so we wanted to just give a little bit more guideline about what we're looking for to make it a successful story. And so first of all, it should be tied to an individual. I know some of you have reported on a group and how this group has been successful. And that's helpful, but we also want to have you focus on just one person. And the success story should be tied to program outcomes. So it's great if, you know, Susie has a lot more confidence now, but if you're a reading by third grade program, we want to know what they're doing better in terms of their literacy skills. Does that make sense? So making sure that they're being tied to what you're reporting on. And we do want to see that there's been some type of change or stability in an individual. So what has your program done with this young person, and how has this person changed from when they started your program to when your program ended, or even if they've been participating for a full amount of time. And then it's really striking that balance between the head and the heart. And I know for those of you that do development, you get this really well. You know that not everyone responds well to numbers, but there are some other people that, you know, want those numbers too. So making sure that there's a balance between hitting that right message with somebody that it can resonate with, but then also making sure that you've got some facts and some things to back it up. And so we have a really nice story from our early learning goal area that does a really nice job. It's a little long, but. So those are it for the narrative questions. Again, as Naomi said, they're the same questions that you've answered in the past, just reordered a little differently to help with the flow and help with some of the redundancy. So hopefully that provides a little bit more clarity. So I'm going to move on to the budget section. And so just as a reminder, these are, again, going to be just reminders of things that we've seen some inconsistencies in, so that's why we're calling them out. And so if you're kind of saying to yourself, well, duh, I've done this, fantastic, you're doing great. So this is just simple reminders to make sure that you're paying attention to some of these details. So a number of folks did miss the organizational budget information piece. So remember, we're looking for your entire organizational budget and not just your program budget in this particular section. And for those of you that did report in April, you can probably use that same number that you did there. So this is just maybe a repeat from the last report that you submitted. Moving on to the program budget, there are just a few things we wanted to note. First of all, it does look a little different. We've added some gridding, so it's a little bit easier to connect the line to what you're actually filling in. And we've done that throughout the whole demographic section. Because we've noticed some folks, you know, they serve kids in Anoka County, but they're Carver County based, and we're kind of like, I don't know if that's quite right. So we're hoping that makes it just a little bit easier to do that. We also added on the column up top 2012, 2013 actual, and 2013, 2014 projected. So that should hopefully give you a better sense of when we're asking for current year and projected years, which years we mean. So. And again, this, all of you are reporting on the July to June calendar year. And moving into the income portion, the Greater Twin Cities United Way line should just be your grant amount. So this will be in your funding agreement. So this isn't designations. Oh, yep, we have a question, Mary Beth. Can you?
We receive our annualized funding amount, but we also receive money from individuals through Greater Twin Cities United Way. So that number wouldn't necessarily be in line with our annualized amount. It would be more than that.
Right, and so what we're asking is if you do receive designations for your program, that they would actually go in the individual or charitable contributions piece of it. So again, just the great question though. So the Greater Twin Cities United Way is just your grant amount for the program. So I know some of you may receive strategic planning funds or capacity building funds. Those don't belong in this line. It's just your grant amount. So we're just trying to keep it simple, keep it easy. That make sense? Head nods? Okay, perfect. And then the other United Ways line, I know there's been a little confusion around how we're defining that. But for some of you, I know you're kind of right on the border of another United Way. So if you receive money from the United Way of Olmsted County, that's where that would go. So this line also does not include designations or capacity building funds, only other grants that you've received from United Ways other than Greater Twin Cities. Make sense? Head nods? Okay, great. And then the bottom here, there's another category. And we do encourage you, if you do use it, to use the text box right next to it to kind of describe more about what your, and we think we've covered most of the income things. So an example that came up was Boys and Girls Club has a national component, and so they get money from that national piece. And so if there's something like that where you have a unique situation, that's where that would go in. Does that make sense? So if you do have some additional funds that you don't think fit well into the other categories, use that, but please do describe what you're putting in there so we can have a better understanding. So again, expenses, pretty straightforward. Again, if you, we have a narrative box, which was the same as the last time. So if we just wanted to highlight a few pieces of what we're looking for in that narrative box. And so was there an abnormal event or an occurrence that impacted the program budget in some way? So you might have a really high transportation fee one year, or something, you might have a consultant on, and so that's why the budget's a little different from year to year. So having that included in the description helps us understand how your program's developing, what's going on, and just gives us a better sense. And then if there are other areas that were either significantly over or underspent, what's the rationale behind that? And again, this isn't meant to be punitive, but meant to just really help us give an understanding of where your program's at. And if there's a way for us to be helpful, that's a conversation starter for us. So we know that there's always a story behind the numbers in terms of budget. So we're just curious as to what that story is and how we can be helpful and supportive. Make sense? Any questions at all on the budget? Okay, great. So moving on to program demographic data. And again, this area is the same. We've just, again, on the report, it's actually a lot longer, and Tom will show you this, but we've just kind of put it all together on one piece of paper just to save some trees. This hasn't changed with the exception of just adding the grids to make it a little bit easier to fill it out. And one thing we do want to make sure that you're continuously improving on is making sure that the unknown categories in each one are getting smaller and smaller so that you have a really good sense of who you're serving and you have that data. So there's unknown categories in all of them, including gender, age, race, geographic. And so we're really looking to have those numbers low, and it's especially important for our income data so that we know that our dollars are going to the greatest impact in serving those that are living at 200% poverty or below. So everything else has stayed the same. And then at the very end here, service delivery locations, again, that's the same as what you saw in the springtime. Any questions on this form or general content related pieces to the annual report? Mary Beth, I think we have a question over here.
You may have already addressed this. I came in a few minutes late, but it feels like we just reported on the calendar year of our program, and now there's this new, so will there be some overlap? I mean, there will be some overlap.
So I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so we reported on January through December, and now we're going to be reporting on July through June.
What goal area are you with?
Out of school time.
Okay, so for all of the for out of school time, you should be reporting on July through June calendar years. So for the report that you submitted in April, that one should have been July through June through the 2011-2012 academic year. So we can talk maybe offline and figure out what we can do.
We have 4 different programs, so I may be getting this confused, but it does feel as though, maybe because I think in calendar year terms, but this is just the next, okay.
Yep, so this year you'll be reporting on July 2012 through June 2013. So we can talk offline and make sure that we're both on the same page, yeah. So good question. Any other questions? Okay. So just some additional tips to remind you is that, again, we're aiming for accuracy and quality. So that's why we wanted to provide you with some more information on what we're looking for within the annual reports, and hopefully that provides some more guidance. Again, we encourage you to start the report as soon as you can. Many of you have been through this before, and so you're pros, but sometimes information can take more time than you thought to fill it out, and people go on vacation, especially during the summer. So we just want to make sure that you allow enough time to fill out the report as quality as possible. And again, if you have questions along the way or are concerned that your numbers may not look as good as you would hope, please contact Naomi or I, and we're more than happy to sit down and talk with you about what those numbers mean, what they look like, and understand some of maybe the external forces that have been going on with your program so that we can get a better sense of how we can support you. So we're not scary people at all, so please don't hesitate to call if you have a question or just want to chat about your annual report. And again, the due date is August 30th at 4 p.m. Any other questions? So that ends the portion of our kind of content-focused material. So I'm going to invite Tom Lance from our Information Systems Department to come up and just do a quick refresh on how to log in and how to do some of the troubleshooting and filling out the actual technical aspects of the report.
All right. Good morning. Thank you guys all for the work that you do, and welcome to the training here. By a quick show of hands, who used the reporting tool earlier this year for 2012? Okay. Who's brand new? Just a few. Perfect. For those of you who went through the reporting process earlier this year, we did do a follow-up survey on that, track on, questions, issues, things people liked about the system. As much as we possibly could, we did build that into changes for this year. So hopefully you'll see some good things. There's still going to be some challenges. We'll point out what those are and give you some tips to avoid trouble. So again, my name is Tom Lance. I'm in our IT department here. At some point, I'm probably going to say something about submitting your online pledge. That's my other part of my job. So if I mix those up, that's the reason. All right, quick basic steps. As far as getting through to submit your report, step one you're going to notice is not log in, start entering information. Step one, you're going to want to put together your reporting team and put together a plan for that team as far as how you're going to submit that information. I'm going to mention this a few times during the report or during the quick little demo here today. But is there anybody here who in the earlier reporting period this year saved something, had someone else in your report, they saved something, it overwrote what you did? Anybody here who had that happen? It's bad news. We don't want it to happen. Make a plan for how you're going to submit your information so that you don't have two people working in the report at the same time. So especially for those folks who are new, that is one of the hurdles that I'll warn you guys about. So maybe that's one person who's your point person who collects all the information. Only one person is working in the report. Maybe you have a couple people you want working in the report, but you're going to set days. Okay, I'm going to go in and work on this day. You can work on the other day, things like that. All right. Once you know everybody who needs to report into this or use the reporting system, step two, prepare to log in. you actually do need to register for an account on the tool, and I'll show you where to do that. That's a little bit of a manual process on our end because we need to make sure you're connected up with the right organization, make sure you're going to see the right things on the website. I think we have a disclaimer that it takes us between like 15 minutes and 24 or 48 hours. So it depends upon who's in, when the request comes in. I wouldn't recommend submitting a request for a login on August 19th at 3 o'clock. Might not be the best way to go about it. So figure out who's going to need access, do that early. Then go ahead and log in, take a look, find where you need to go. I'll show you how to start a report. Once everything is completed, reviewed by your executive director, no more changes, at that point you're going to submit the report. Once you submit the report, it's not accessible to you any longer. So make sure everything is all set. All right. For the system, we have a few different browsers we recommend. Internet Explorer is going to work best. Firefox works well. I use Chrome occasionally, Safari. They should all work. Internet Explorer is going to work best for you. All right. We mentioned register everyone on your team. I'm going to flip over to our website quick and show you how to do that. So here. All right. The link is in the PowerPoint here as well. But from our website, for nonprofits, funding, current funding opportunities, down the screen a little bit here, we're going to have a request new user account. Provide as much information on this as you can, again, so that we can make sure you get connected up to the right organization. Especially in the organization name, we run into acronym troubles. The folks who are setting these up are on our IT team, not on the community impact side, so they don't necessarily know what all the acronyms mean. So give us as much information as you can. We'll make sure that you get connected up, and we'll get those processed as quickly as possible. So. All right. Once you have completed the form, step 2, you should get an email from the system. Subject is going to be United Way grant system password. It has been reset or has been created. If you're signing up for the first time, you're going to be excited to go out to the site. You're going to want to log in right away, get in there and start making changes. It takes about 10 minutes for things to sync between our two systems. So if you have trouble, if you go in and it says you don't have access, give it a little bit. Make sure that the systems have caught up and that you got your access. So log in. The email address that you provide is going to be your username. The initial password is going to be in that email you receive, and then you can change the password to something that makes more sense to you. All right. And then as far as where to go, a couple options. We do have the just general grants proposal actually that should be unitedwaytwincities.org. We'll get that fixed. You can go generally to the dashboard for the tool. There's going to be a few different options as far as reporting sites. You may see past reports, past applications that you've submitted. So to hopefully make things a little bit cleaner for you guys, both in an email that you're going to receive and posted to a resources page on our website, there's going to be links directly to the reporting sites for each of the areas. So I think that's probably your best bet. If you're reporting on out of school time, go to our general website or go to that email that you received, link right to the reporting site for out of school time. So hopefully that's going to be the quickest way through. Again, enter your email address that you've registered an account with and the password that you have been sent. And, all right, and then we're going to go for a tour. I'm going to pull up the site, click here. All right, and here is on our website the resources, annual reporting resources page. A lot of both the agenda that we've used for today, the presentations, all sorts of details on each of the different reports are going to be out there, including, as I mentioned, these links here. So click here for out of school time reporting site, which I actually already have up. This should look familiar for those of you who have used it before. Username and password. If you have been in here before and you can't remember your username and password, you shouldn't need to request a new account. There is that forgot username and password link there in the lower left-hand corner. So. All right. So here, again, we dropped right into the out of school time grantees page. There's some information on there, the details on the grant cycle, the program manager, contact information for them if you run into questions. 2013 reporting site, the 2012 reporting site, if you had submitted a 2012 report, and then previously submitted documents in here. The CI team is working on that, but you should be able to find your approved indicators, your grantee agreement in there if you have questions on that. For the 2013 report, once we're ready to go, the big Start a New Report link is going to drop us into the form. Again, there's some changes that we've made to this. By and large, it should look pretty familiar to folks who have been in here before. We did flip the location of these two fields. Naomi pointed out that we had some folks who were selecting their program here, and then they wanted to page down through the report, or they scroll down and page down to look at later questions. They're flipping through and selecting a different one. So once you select that, I would stay out of that box and I would double check it before you submit to make sure that you've got the right program submitted there. All right, provide a report name. Let's see, other changes that we had. Minor kind of formatting changes to the indicator section. All of these should be worded exactly the same as they were on the indicator on the agreement. The indicator should be labeled. There should be no confusion between the reporting and what we agreed upon in the first place. So hopefully that should work for all of you. We also did add, and I don't know if this was touched on, but variation boxes. There was one field at the bottom of the indicator section where you could list any variations between the indicators, the proposed and the actual. We've added fields there for each of them, so hopefully you can get a little bit more granular and tell us about any variations there. And Rachel covered most of this, the actual details in the narrative sections. Again, we have grid lines. Hopefully the budgeting and demographics field should be a little cleaner, a little easier to go through. Service delivery locations for anyone who is new to these reports. These are the actual locations where you're delivering services. If you have multiples, fill in the information. Down at the bottom, click to add another address. And you can add in there as many service delivery locations as you need to. One other change, I'm going to plug in a name for this report. So we had some people who commented that I clicked save. I wasn't sure if my report actually saved. Could you check and see if it's updated? Could you see if it's in there? I did see this myself, that it was a little tricky to know whether your information had saved. We hopefully made that a lot easier this year. Please select our information. We're going to save that report. There you go. Hopefully you can't miss that. You saved your report, return, and you can keep editing. So let's see if there are any other. We do recommend, and it's labeled a few times on there, we recommend you save the report repeatedly. It is a web session. Things happen with web connections, things like that. So save repeatedly while you're in there, and save it if you're not actually actively working in the report. We recommend that you save it, close out. We've had cases where there were questions and folks wanted the program manager to go in there and take a look at the report. And there's, again, we run into some troubles if there are multiple people in the report. So if you're not actively working in it, save out. That's also going to prevent you from having multiple people making changes and maybe saving at the same time. So I think that's what we've got on the actual form itself. So let's go to some tips. Okay. All right, a few tips. Again, save as you go along. In the list of resources that are going to be provided this year, we've got PDF copies, sample copies of what's in the report for each of the different grants. So you can use those to gather your information, and if you want to use Word as your collection tool, feel free to do that. Just know that there's some formatting. You're not going to maintain all of your formatting if you're copying and pasting from Word. So if you have fancy tables or if you have bullet points, bolding, things like that, the site is a little bit more basic as far as what you're going to be able to include there. So feel free to do that. Again, use the scroll bar to move through the application as opposed to the arrow key, just as a prevention to make sure that you're not switching what grant you're reporting into. Again, any staff can prepare and save the report, but multiple staff can overwrite each other's work. So you want to close out when you're not working on the report, and to demonstrate what that looks like, in case you haven't picked it up yet. If Susan opens her report at 8:07, makes a whole bunch of changes. At 8:14, Carl goes in to make a bunch of changes as well. Susan's going to save her report at 8:24. She's done. Later, when Carl saves his changes at 8:38, he's saving changes based on the original, brand new application, and all of that work that Susan saved at 8:24 is going to get overwritten with just Carl's work. So, is that enough warnings? People understand what we're saying? All right, make sure we got one person working in there at the same time. All right, once you're ready to submit the report, again, go through, make sure all of your fields are completed. One thing I will point out actually on the form itself. On the demographics section and on the reading by third grade section, you're going to see this as well. First thing you should fill in here is the number of individuals served. If I have 100 individuals served, the rest of the sections there should come out to total up to 100. So if I've got 50 and 50, that box that was previously red is going to balance out. If you notice any of your boxes red, it's because they're not balancing out with your total number up above. And again, for folks in the reading by third grade section, there's an indicator up at top that's going to work the same way. So as you're preparing to submit, good thing to do is scan through and make sure none of your boxes are red. Make sure all of your demographic boxes are going to balance. So. All right, so make sure all the fields are complete and everything balances. Make sure all of your internal reviews are completed, including the approval of your executive director. And then again, save it, submit it. You can pull up your agency dashboard and it should say submitted next to it. So I don't think I had any other things there. And resources for you. I mentioned that we're going to send out an email with information on the reports. Both the links to the grantee subsite, links to the webinar, link to the sample PDF of the reports, this PowerPoint that we're going through right here, and then all of those details, again, should be you should be able to find them on the reporting instructions site on our website that I pulled up as well. So hopefully lots of information there that you guys can find. The service level agreements with information on technical assistance can be found on the reporting site as well. The email for our help desk team is support@gtcuw.org. You can talk to me, you can talk to Nick, you can talk to Jody. We'll help you through if you run into technical questions with the form. If you run into questions on, what am I supposed to fill in this box? We are not good people to ask. We will lead you astray. So call your program managers, they'll make sure to help you with that. And then we have a phone number for our help desk as well if you're a phone person instead of email. Questions? I think we got mics coming around.
Can you please show us where we get to the workaround to print the report?
The workaround for the printing, I believe, was on the I believe it's on this one. Kevin, do you know, is that on the service level agreement form? Yep. There we go. Okay. So there should be all sorts of info here. Yeah, if you need to print off the form, the workaround, there is a print. You can print right off of the screen. We have a print view. One thing we do run into trouble with occasionally, if you have very long responses, the way that SharePoint, which is a tool that we're using, the way that things print from here, if they overflow onto multiple pages, it tends to clip off. So there's some instructions here. If you run into further problems after this, reach out to our help desk and we can see what we can do to help you out. That's certainly a limitation we know about. It's something we would love to address. If anyone has good contacts at Microsoft who can make some changes for us, that's how we're going to go about making that change. So, other questions? Cool. Oh yeah, one more.
So related to setting up the passwords for your team,
yep.
Earlier we had one person that had to do that and register the team members.
Okay.
Is that correct? My concern
no.
is we can have a lot of people all going on now, and that isn't necessarily how the organization wants that structured?
Okay. From our standpoint, you could have multiple people in who can have access to see your reports. And if they want to go in and do it themselves, that's fine. You shouldn't need to have one person be the point person to submit those. Does that answer your question?
So I'm trying to clarify. When you went to the new system, one person had to kind of create that team of who had access. And now is it anybody that wants to go on could log in, get access? How would the organization know if you've got multiple people that have now registered to go online and can go in and edit the report?
I would say many organizations have multiple people.
No. It's not that you can't. I'm saying how does the organization have an opportunity to have access to know who's been set up?
How does your organization know?
Right.
Send us a request and we can look that up for you.
Okay, because again, it's a control thing, making sure if there's changes of personnel that we've got that. So we can contact you and get that listing.
Yep. And along with that, if folks leave your organization who had access, let us know. Behind the scenes, that you have to be both granted access to the system and connected to an organization, and we would remove their connection to your organization, then they lose any access that they had to your reports in the past. All of their login information is going to be tied to their organizational address. So if they left, they sort of lose some of that connection and access anyways. But if they happen to remember their password and wanted to use their old address, they could access it. So definitely let us know and we can disconnect them. Or we can get you a full list of who has access.
Great. Thank you very much.
Great question. All right. Cool. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not too scary, right? Not too many changes. Feeling good? Yeah? Great. So thanks again for coming. I'll just point out one other thing that we touched on, maybe not so obviously, and that's just that our email address has changed. Instead of writing Twin Cities, UnitedWayTwinCities.org, it's now gtcuw.org. So all of our email extensions are at gtcuw.org. Our website is now gtcuw.org. Except for SharePoint, good point. Just so you know also, if when it comes to email, if you're using an old email address, no worries, it's still working. They still will get to us. That time will expire at some point, but I think it's not for another 5 months. But we do want to just mention that now so that you get in the habit of using that email address. So now we're going to take some time to break out into the individual goal areas for easeability. We're going to have early learning in that corner, and you're going to be meeting with Megan. I'll just give you the brief summary here. Not much has changed, so that's probably going to be a very quick meeting. Out of school time is going to meet with Rachel Oberghauser in that corner. And then reading by third grade is going to be up front. Why don't we do it in the middle? Okay? And if you need to leave early and you want to reach out to the program managers, please do. We're here to help you through this new reporting calendar. And thank you, and your teams for this. Thanks.